Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel.
Today we are looking at one of the most compelling and fiercely contested battlegrounds of the current war in Ukraine, the city of Pokrovsk, and how its defense has become emblematic of Ukraine's
wider struggle. I want you to imagine a city that was once a quiet transport hub, its railway junctions humming, life moving at a calm pace.
Then imagine it transformed into a ravaged, shattered urban terrain, its roads turned into killing fields, buildings turned into fortresses.
That is the scenario in Pokrovsk now.
But beyond that, we'll go deeper into what makes this fight important, what we can learn from it, and why the city's fate might matter far beyond its own limits. The backdrop is this. Pokrovsk lies in the Donetsk region of eastern Ukraine, and it sits at a crucial intersection of roads and rails, a logistics node, a hub.
Russia has for months made serious efforts to seize control of it, because controlling such a hub means controlling movement, supply, momentum.
The Ukrainian defenders recognize this. Reports indicate that the Russian forces have thrown considerable weight into the area, attempting to push through, penetrate, encircle, and break the city's defenses.
Yet, despite all that, for now, Pokrovsk still holds. Its defense is stubborn, costly, and telling. So what makes the defense of Pokrovsk so revealing?
First, it shows how modern warfare in Ukraine has evolved. Urban combat, logistics disruption, drone strikes, infiltration teams, attrition war.
The reports say that in Pokrovsk, small groups of Russian soldiers have infiltrated the city, and fierce street battles are taking place. The city has become a gray zone
where control is fluid, neither side fully dominating, both sides' troops mixed in the streets.
The defenders' role has shifted from holding broad front lines to holding key nodes, denying the enemy momentum, turning every street and building into a delaying and attrition mechanism. As one commentary puts it, it was ugly, it was costly, and it worked. The longer we held on, the more Russia's timetable frayed, the more their manpower stretched. Second, on a strategic level, Pokrovsk matters because its loss would not just be another town lost, it would represent a gateway. Analysts say that if Russia were to take Pokrovsk, it would bring them closer to major Ukrainian cities in Donetsk and would undermine Ukrainian defensive depth. At the same time, the very fact that Ukraine has held it, despite intense pressure, signals something about their willingness to fight, their capacity to sustain, and the broader war of attrition they are waging. The commentary says, Pokrovsk represents a place where Russia feels it must win, and where the Ukrainian armed forces are making them pay dearly for trying. Third, the human dimension. Every report about this battle speaks of civilians evacuated, infrastructure destroyed, supply lines tenuous, urban shells of former homes.
The logistical picture is grim. Drone strikes on supply, difficult rotations for troops, urban terrain turned hostile. For instance, a Ukrainian drone operator on the ground described the situation as a mess, with both sides' soldiers mixed together across streets and buildings. The price is heavy. The bravery of the defenders, the stress they endure, the civilians caught in the crossfire, all of this makes the defense of Pokrovsk not just a military or strategic event, but a human story. Now, moving into the narrative of what the defense looks like and how it's being fought. Initially, Pokrovsk likely seemed vulnerable.
In August of the previous year, Russian forces had advanced to within about 8 miles of the city limits, and many believed it might fall in weeks or months.
The Ukrainians, however, used that time to prepare. Defense lines, layered fortifications, mine belts, anti-tank obstacles, drone nets, indirect fire capabilities, all were part of the picture. According to one analysis, I saw the preparations around Pokrovsk myself. Layered defenses, tank ditches, dragon's teeth, deep mine belts, razor wire stretching to the horizon.
So, when the Russian offensive intensified, the defenders were ready to turn the terrain to their advantage.
Street by street fighting emerged. The Russian method of massed advance and breakthrough met fierce resistance.
Urban terrain meant the attackers' advantage of numbers and armor was blunted. The defenders used ambushes, crossfires, deep local knowledge, and repeated counter-infiltration.
Meanwhile, the Russians shifted to infiltration, sabotage, drones, missile strikes.
As one article puts it, it's been described as a wasteland of collapsed buildings and empty streets, with Ukraine recently deploying its special forces to bolster the defense.
Reports say that Ukrainian forces have deployed special and assault units into Pokrovsk to bolster the defense and push back infiltration.
At the same time, Russia has attempted to disrupt Ukrainian logistics with FPV drones, drone strikes on supply routes, and to squeeze the defenders.
The problem is mainly with logistics, getting our personnel in and out, evacuations, drones, ammunition, because the same problem with FPV persists, said a Ukrainian major.
What emerges is a pattern. The goal is no longer just to hold a city for glory, but to make the defenders' cost as high as possible, to turn the attackers' advantage of momentum into a liability.
One piece explains, the longer we held on, the more their manpower stretched. We are still fighting for Pokrovsk. Because in a war like this, you don't trade land for convenience. You trade the
enemy's ambition for their lifeblood.
For Ukraine, holding Pokrovsk is less about refusing to lose ground and more about exacting cost, buying time, frustrating the enemy's timetable, inflicting attrition.
Let's talk about what this defense reveals about the nature of warfare in Ukraine today. First, logistics and control of nodes matter enormously.
You don't just fight front lines, you fight the arteries that keep the army alive. Pokrovsk is a railway and road junction. Whoever controls it can shape the battle in the Donetsk region. The defender's task is to deny or contest that hub. Second, urban terrain advantages the defender. The attacker pays a high cost in men, equipment, time.
Third, drone technology, reconnaissance, small infiltration teams stand out.
Traditional large-scale mass maneuver is less dominant. Instead, we see precise strikes, combined arms, remote observation, and attrition warfare.
Fourth, morale, symbol, perception matter. Holding or losing Pokrovsk will send a message to both sides and to the world.
One article emphasizes that the fall of Pokrovsk would be a symbolic victory for Russia and a serious setback for Ukraine.
From a review standpoint, we can ask, what are the lessons? If one were to draw out takeaways, terrain is still king.
Holding key physical nodes, cities, junctions, infrastructure, imposes cost on the aggressor and shapes the strategic picture.
Defense is not passive. The defenders in Pokrovsk are not hunkering down. They are actively contesting, fighting infiltration, controlling logistics, using modern tools.
Time can be an ally. By holding Pokrovsk longer than expected, Ukraine has forced Russia to shift resources, delay its plans, stretch its manpower.
As one analysis says, the longer we held on, the more Russia's timetable frayed. War today is hybrid: drones, smart weapons, urban combat, drone logistics, FPV strikes, deep infiltration.
The old textbook of tanks and massed infantry is still relevant, but modified by new technologies and tactics.
Symbolic battles matter. The battle for Pokrovsk is about much more than the city. It's about momentum, morale, narrative.
And defending in such contested terrain sends a message. The risk of attrition is ever present. The longer the fight drags, the more both sides pay.
Winning may mean simply refusing to lose quickly. Now, what of the human cost and the future outlook?
The civilian population, many already evacuated, the infrastructure reduced to rubble, the daily reality of constant threat, mines, drones overhead, supply lines severed all paint a grim picture.
The defenders face shortages, rotation is dangerous, logistics vulnerable.
One report explains that even a narrow corridor connecting the city to other Ukrainian held areas remains under constant drone attack.
The war of attrition is brutal. Moreover, some analysts ask whether the decision to hold the city at all costs is sustainable.
One volunteer journalist warns that delaying a withdrawal might risk catastrophic losses.
On the future outlook, if Ukraine can continue to hold and perhaps even gradually disrupt Russian momentum, the strategic picture remains in their favor.
If Russia breaks through, the loss of Pokrovsk could open new corridors for them in Donetsk, but as multiple commentators emphasize, taking the city will not be easy nor cheap.
The commentary adds the capture of Pokrovsk would hit morale, it would give Russia a propaganda moment, the loss would hit Ukraine's defensive depth.
So how do we contextualize all of this for an audience?
For those of us watching from afar, Pokrovsk is a microcosm of the war in Ukraine. Resilience, strategy, cost, shifting warfare, human suffering, strategic consequences.
It shows that in this war, victory isn't always about rapid breakthroughs, but often about persistence, endurance, denial, and attrition.
The defenders may not be celebrating victories every day, but each day that the city holds is itself a strategic success.
At the same time, the stakes remain high. The resources, attention, and focus Russia is committing to the city suggest that its loss would resonate beyond the local front.
In closing, what should we take away?
If you remember one thing, let it be, the defense of Pokrovsk is about more than geography. It's about patience, grit, and making the enemy pay for every meter. The city has transformed from a railway junction into a symbol of resistance. The cost to the attacker is mounting. The defender's job is to hold, delay, deny, and in doing so buy time, and perhaps shape the broader war.
The human cost is real. The stakes are high. But so too is the courage, the planning, and the determination shown by those holding the city.
Thank you for joining me in this deep dive into Pokrovsk's defense, for remembering that wars are won and lost not only in big headlines but in broken city blocks, exhausted resupply convoys, drone
strikes in the night, small teams fighting for every building.
If you found this helpful, feel free to like the video, share your thoughts below, and subscribe for more breakdowns of key battlefronts and strategic flashpoints.
I'll see you in the next one.